Well, that fucked up. Hello everybody, my name is Scorpion and welcome to my new video. Now in this video I'm going to be covering a engine tutorial. I've had a lot of comments about what engine to make, and so I've resorted to building a V12. Shoo! This is a tutorial, go away! Oh. Anyway, so I've resorted to make a V12, and, well, if you don't want to make a V12, just come and see me. I'm on Chronology build server. This one's the one that's password protected, so you won't be able to join this one, but there's another one that's just called the Chronology build server, which I will be on most of the time. But I digress. So, I suppose we'll start off by, well, facing north. Now, this is obviously really important for the ball sockets in an engine, to make sure that they work correctly in that. It's also just a nice gesture just to get into a rhythm of building to the north, but I suppose anybody who's watching this video would know that already. So, we will start off with the block. Now, since we'll be making a V12, we're going to be needing this one here, I believe, yes. Okay. So we'll rotate it 45 degrees. Now this engine I will probably just use thrusters. I've been getting more and more into using wire link, but to keep it simple, we'll just stick with a thruster. So we'll set that to, I'll set it to 100. That'll do. And we'll get the model right. So, to change the model, we're going to change it to a cylinder. So, we'll change it to this one here, cylinder 6x6. So, you just right click it, copy to clipboard, go into your console, you type wire thruster underscore model, and then you paste the model in there, and there you go, you got the model there. So, what we're going to do, we're just going to spawn one of them. We're going to bring it up here. And then we're going to spawn our crankshaft. So our crankshaft, we will use a 6x36. Bring that back up here. And make sure it's the plus sort of sign. It's just so we can put the thruster on vertical to start off with. As I described in my other video about piston spazzing, we covered there's certain spots on the block that don't work very well. Anyway, so now we're going to stack this piston over. So what we do is put a 0.1 on one side of the piston, then 0.2 on the other side. Make sure they're both connected, so you should see a little green triangle. And you want to go not into your R menu, but you want to go into your C menu. So you hold down C. Now make sure you hold down Shift as well. So you want to make sure 0.2's there and 0.1's there. And you click Move Entity while you're holding down Shift. And that will create 5 more pistons in the original space. So now what we want to do is, obviously we're not going to be making a 6-cylinder. So now we need to rotate the pistons. Now you can't just rotate them like this. What's he doing here? You can't just rotate them like this because they will just be, they would rotate in the center of their position. So what we want to do is we want to put a point in the center of the crankshaft, so it doesn't really matter, I can actually remove that, put 0.1 there. As you can see it's 0.1. Right click it, and now we need to find the direction at which we want to rotate it. So we'll go relative to entity, make sure you always do that, and click get angles to make sure they're all 0. Pivot point, select 0.1, and so now we just need to find which direction, so that's not it. Set that back to 0. That's not it, so it's pitch for me. There we go, 45 degrees. So now what we want to do is that we want to undo that, and we want to hold down Shift now. And you want to click Rotate Entity. As you can see, it puts another piston back in that original spot. So now all you have to do is hold down Shift and right click the rest of the pistons. And that will put them like that. So now we go back and right click this one, press R, and you want to go negative 45 now, so that would rotate them the opposite direction. But now without holding shift, you just click rotate entity and it'll move it to that position. And now you just have to hold down shift and right click these ones, and then they should, oops, I did that one twice, and they should move without spawning another one in their original location. So now we've pretty much got the positioning of the pistons done. Now we want to rotate, oh my god, now we want to rotate the crankshaft. Now we want to rotate it 45 degrees, so I'm pretty sure it's this angle. Yes, there we go. Just want to make sure that's correct. Yep, that's correct, 45 degrees. So now, actually I'll just check that. Yep, that's correct. Sorry, it looked a little bit offset for me. Right, so now we can go up to our precision tool, and you don't have to use precision if you don't want to. You can use PA and you can do that same thing that I used to stack them. But what we're going to do is we're going to nudge them out 200% of their original location. So essentially when you have push adds percentage and you set it to 100, it will nudge that prop out exactly the size that it was at. So you can see it's just nudged out exactly 100% its size. So you want to do this at 200, so keep doing it for these ones. And then, or you could just set it to 200 there, so you only have to click once. There we go. Alrighty. So now what we might want to do is slider. Now, I've probably said this before in another video, but you always got to slider first. Always slider first. Doesn't matter what you're doing, don't put an axis in, just slider first. Make sure it's the first constraint. Okay? But now what I'm wanting to do is I want to get that crank into this point right here. See that point right there? I don't want it down here. I don't want it in the center. I want it right there. So what I want to do is I want to undo all my points, and I want to put point 1 down here. Okay? And then point 2 I'm going to put up here in the center. So now they're pretty much on the diagonal point. So now what I want to do is I want to press R, I want to go to points, and I want you to hold down mouse 1 and select both point 1 and point 2 there. Okay? You go to center of points. Make sure you click center of points, okay? Because what it will do is it gets the center of the point between point 1 and point 2. Alright, and then you want to go up to here, point adjustment, and click point 1, and then select set. And as you can see, that point now is right in the center of where we want it to be. Okay? So now we go over to the crankshaft, click mass center, make sure point 2 is selected. You want to select point 2 there. Okay? So now we right click the block. We need to swap these points around, otherwise that crank's going to go there. We don't want that, we want the block to go there. So go point 1 and point 2, move entity, and there we go. Right, so now we've done that. Now we get onto the sliders. Now I'm going to nudge this out another another 50, sorry. So we've got them there. Actually, we might nudge them out 100 because then we want to get the points in there. So we'll nudge it out 100. So nudge them all out 100 again. And now we're going to slide it. Now you can use vanilla sliders, which are just the standard sliders in GarrysMod, but I'm going to try and keep this as technical as I can, but still keeping it relatively simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use precision alignment. I'm going to put a point there, another point there, another point there, another point there. So you hold down shift and you can just click along the line there, so you've got multiple points. Okay. So now that I've done that, I want to nudge them down 50. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I want to nudge them down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now I want to right click the block and I want to attach those points to the block. So make sure it's right clicked. All those points there will have a green line attached to those props, which means that they're attached to that piston, those pistons. Hold down C and click attach, and you'll see those green lines will now move to the center of the block, which means that they are now attached to the block and not the piston. I'll demonstrate now. So I'll move this piston. You can see it's still attached to the block. So now what we want to do is we want to go to point 5 and click mass center. And we want to click on the pistons again in order. So 1, 5. So you got 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7, 4, 8. So now they should be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 in the mass center of the pistons. It's a little bit hard to see, I know, because of how close they are, but anyway. So make sure that those center pistons, they're not attached to the block, only those ones that were attached to the bottom of the pistons. So now you press the R menu, and then you want to go to constraints, and then slider. So now we go to point 1 and point 5, and we click slider, point 2 and point 6, point 3, point 7, point 4 and point 8. So now those 4 pistons should be slided. But now we'll finish off the rest of them, which I'll do now. So 1, 2, we'll nudge them down 50. Make sure our block's attached. Click attach on them so that they're attached to the block. And then 3 in the mass center of that one. And 4 on that one. Go to your constraints. 1, 3, 2, 4. And now we repeat the steps over on this side. So it's good practice actually to do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't hold down shift that time, I did it manually to select the points. I nudged those pistons down. Right click the block and attach them all. Check to make sure they're all attached, and they are. And I go up to point 5, make sure I go mass center. I look for point 1, which is this one here, so point 1, point 5, point 2, point 6. 0.3, 0.7, 0.4, 0.8. And so now, go to sliders, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7, and 4, 8. And now we have to do just the last 2. So go back to hit pause, select the last 2 again, nudge them down, make sure our block's selected. 0.3, 0.4. It doesn't matter if you set the width of them either, just a hint, it doesn't change anything. I've just set them to 0 so that it looks clean. But with the ropes I will make them visible so that you can see them. Right, so now we've done the sliders, which is probably the most frustrating part in making an engine because they just break all the time. Now, obviously you just saw me, I just went up to the constraints and selected a tool called Disable Collisions. Now, your server may not have this tool, so what you can do instead is go to a Smart No Collide or a No Collide All tool, and you just select the whole engine and No Collide everything. But I prefer to use Disable Collisions because it means that they won't collide with the ground, the world, which is really big help. So I'm going to quickly do this. And we've been interrupted again. That's alright. Anyway, now we right click this with the Advanced Duplicator 2 tool, sorry, I'm getting my words muddled up. And then we want to paste a copy of it. We don't want to unfreeze our good copy because we might ruin it. So now what we need to do is we need to check that the sliders are working. So we just select them and move them up and down a little bit. Okay, so you want to do that for all of them just to make sure that they are working, because if we ever come across one that's broken, we can fix it straight away rather than finishing the whole engine, and then we realize that the piston is broken, and then we have to go back and fix it up. So it looks like these are actually pretty perfect. Yeah, they're not moving at all. We haven't even changed the weights, which is good. Yep, they're all working. Rightio. Now we get to the roping. Now this is actually a little bit complex. Now hopefully you can follow along. But before we do that, we need a fading door out block. So that we press a button and it can fading door. I set my button to numpad 0 just for simplicity. And you can choose whatever effect you want as long as you can see through. The one I selected was wireframe. So now, yes, we'll get onto the roping. So we want to go to precision alignment. And effectively, well, I'll say this, effectively a V12 is 2 inline 6 engines, okay? So each inline 6 engine, the pistons, or a pair of pistons, are rotated 120 degrees apart. So I'll color code this for simplicity. This one and this one push up and down at the same time. This one and this one push up and down at the same time. And then this one and this one push up and down at the same time. So they all sort of balance each other's forces out. So if it was just a 3-cylinder, it will vibrate quite a bit because there's only 3 forces working on the one crankshaft. But since we've got 2 pretty much inline 3 engines, they even each other's balances out so that the crankshaft doesn't rock around. It doesn't rock around or anything because they're pushing down on 2 points, which keeps it nice and balanced. So I'll leave those color-coded for you. And so now we will begin roping. So now we want to go to precision alignment, click point, hit pause, snap sensitivity all the way down to 0.1. Okay, make sure you got 0.1. Another thing to actually note is we'll go into Smart Snap. And I'll leave this window open now for a bit. You can pause the video and just copy the settings that I have here for Smart Snap. The main one that you need to change is this one here, which I've got down as 12. Okay. Make sure this one here is 0 as well. 0, 12. Okay, so now we click point 1 right there. Okay. Go back into precision alignment. Point 2, we're going to move over to the other red one. And then point 3, we're going to move to the blue one. Point 4, we're going to move over to the other blue one. Okay. Now, here comes the tricky bit. Since this crankshaft is at its 0 point, okay, and then these are going to be our first pistons. What is he doing? We need to unattach these 2 pistons, otherwise the green and the blue ones are moving up and down at the same time, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is right click the ground, hold down Q or C, and we want to unattach point 3 and point 4. So we just go attach and attach. So now they don't have a green line on them. So effectively they're not really connected to anything. They're just sort of free floating. Okay. But now we want to go up to point 5. We want to put point 5 onto this red piston. Point 6 on this one. Point 7 on this one. And then point 8 on this one. So now that we've done that, we can now begin roping. So now we want to right click the crankshaft because we're going to be using that to rotate. Press R, go to constraints, click on rope, make sure your width's at something unless you want it to look very clean, which I normally do, but for since this is a tutorial, I want to make sure that you guys can see what's going on. You're going to go point 1 and point 5. Okay? Make sure rigid is selected as well and click create constraint. As you can see, we've created a rope between point 1 and point 5, which is in the mass center of our piston. We want to make sure it's in the mass center, okay? So now we go over to, we want to rope this one over here, so all we're going to do is we're going to go to point 2 and point 6. Okay, so now that there is roped. Now we want to rotate the crankshaft to the left. We want to rotate it 120 degrees to the left, okay? So we're going to go to rotation, get angles, make sure you got no points selected. So say you've got all these points selected, they're all got a green dot, and you don't want any of them to, like, you don't want to rotate around any of them. Just double click on one of them, and it won't rotate in the mass center of the prop that you selected. Okay, you want to make sure you got no points are selected there. So you just double click to unselect. Okay. Now we want to rotate the crankshaft. So first we need to find out which way we need to rotate it. So we'll go quickly. We'll just say 10. Okay, so it's rotating the right way. We want it rotating to the left, which it is doing. So now we just put 120 in. And click Rotate Entity. So now you can see that points over there. But those point 3 and point 4, they're still in the same spot. Okay. I might actually, for simplicity, I'll make this yellow so you can see it. Yeah, yellow will do. At least I think it's going to work. Oops, I made that one yellow. There we go. So now you should be able to see those points a little bit better. Point 4 is there, and then point 3 is over here. So now we want to attach those points to the crankshaft there. You've got to make sure you do this, because if you just go in and you go to constraints and you just rope up point 3 and point 7, essentially you're roping it to the world, and that won't be attached to the crankshaft. So that there will just, it won't work at all. So you need to make sure you attach them. So before you press R, you're going to go and hold down C. Make sure this is selected. Right click, and you're going to go point 3 and point 4. So those points should have a green line on them now. And then you go to constraints, rope, point 3, point 7, point 4, point 8. Now effectively why I'm doing this is because it gets it perfectly in line with the crankshaft, so exactly 120 degrees. You can do this freehand, but it won't be as effective as what I'm doing at the moment, which is precise, exactly precise. So now we need to rope these two up. Now we can't just put points there because the crankshaft is in a random angle. So what we need to do is we need to back up 120 degrees. So we go back up there. So now we're back at 45 degrees, okay? So now what we want to do is we want to select the points again for the green piston. So we click delete all, so we remove all the points. Okay, so now we want to go to hit pause there, make sure snap sensitive is at 0.1, put 0.1 there, and 0.2 over here. Okay, now we want to right click the ground, click attach to undo so that they are attached to the world more or less. Want to go to mass center now, 0.3 up here, and 0.4 over here. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to right click the crank, go to rotation. You want to go 120 and to the left. It doesn't really matter. You can go backwards 120, but for simplicity reasons, I like to keep it in one direction. So, oh, that sounded bad. Anyway, rotate. As you can see, that was where we previously put them. Put the blue one, sorry. And now we need to rotate another 120 degrees. So it's at 240 degrees now, the crankshaft. And now we need to attach those points. So 0.1 and 0.2. There we go. And now we create the rope for the green piston. So we go 0.1 and 0.3, 0.2 and 0.4. And there we go. And now we rotate again another 120 degrees. And now we have our first side done, which is a 6-cylinder. So to test it out now, all we've got to do is we want to go to axis center. We want to axis center the crankshaft now, so we click there, left click, unfade, and click there. But before we dupe it, we want to change the weight. So I normally weigh my pistons 10, but for this purpose I might weigh them 5 to keep the weights down. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now to weight the crankshaft, what I do is I normally double the weights of the pistons. So as I said, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that's 30 on that side, and then 60 on this side would be. Okay. But I'm going to double that and set it to 120. So we'll go 120. We'll put the crank at that weight, and then we'll double that weight again and set the block at 240. Okay. You can use any weight you want, but that's the weight that I'm going to use. So now, right click. Oh, sorry, actually, we better make sure that you've got your crankshaft no collided. So you can go to your no collide all tool again and no collider. I'm going to use disable collisions. Make sure that's disabled. Now we can dupe it. Paste it. So now, moment of truth. Select them all. Looking good so far. And then we unfreeze the crankshaft and we give it a little spin. There we go. We've made, effectively, a 6-cylinder. So, if you wanted to make a 6-cylinder, well, there you go. You've made one. You just got to remove these and, well, you're done, pretty much. But it'll be a little bit off balance. As in the weight will be a little bit uneven. But now, we get on to the other side. Now, this should be relatively simple, as I will explain in another engine. So I'll quickly spawn it, go through my dupes, got so many. We'll bring out this one. Yes, I know I named it Sexy Suspension, even though it's not sexy. So we'll remove these. So pretty much what we're doing with this V12 is we're doing similar to what we do with a flat plane V8. Okay, so we've got the points there and we've got 2 on one side, okay? So they're all sort of, we've got 2 on each side, so pretty much 2 V4 engines, think of it that way. And the way we're going to rope it is we're going to rope it like what we've done here. So as you can see, if I give it a little spin, you can see that the points there are roped together across the 2 sides. And that's what we're going to do with the V12, which is what is effectively what it is like in real life. So now we're going to go to precision alignment, undo these points. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to rotate our crankshaft. So we've got click it, make sure it's selected. We want to rotate it 90 degrees, okay, to the left. There you go. So we want to make sure that this point here, these 2, are facing this direction, okay. So now we go to our precision alignment, click hit pause, point 1, point 2, then point 3 here, point 4 here. Right click the ground and attach those 2 points to the ground. And we want to select point 5, make sure it's mass center, point 5 there, point 6 there, point 7, point 8. Make sure that point 1 and point 2 are still attached. Do not unattach them because it won't work. So now what we can do is we can put those 2 points in on this side. So we go to constraints, we'll press R, constraints, rope, point 1, point 5, point 2, point 6. There you go, you can see, perfectly straight line right to that point. Same on this side. Now we want to select the crankshaft, right click it. Now we want to rotate it 120 degrees to the left again. And there we go, 120 degrees. Now we select those 2 points. You can actually see those points are still in that same position. You can see, if I undo the rotation, you can see that they're still there. And when I rotate it 120, you can see that they line up with those ropes there, which is what we want. We want to make sure that that's what they are doing. So now we go point 3, attach, point 4, attach, and now we rope those 2 up. Point 3, point 7, point 4, point 8. And now we want to rotate it back 120. So we're back to 45, which is what we are. There we go. We're going to remove those points. We're going to put we're going to put the last 2 points in. Point 1, point 2, right click the ground, attach, mass center. That's point 3. That's point 4. Right click, crankshaft, undo that negative point, so it's 120. So we go 120, 240. As you can see, those points line up again with those ropes. So now we attach those ropes, so we go point 1 and point 2, click attach, make sure those green lines are there. And then we go constraints, point 1, point 3, 0.2, 0.4. Then we rotate one more time, and we're back to the start. Now we undo these points. Make sure you got your crank still selected, and we want to rotate it -90, so it's back at its 0 point. So it's back there. There we go. So should be lining up with those points. Make sure we've got all points deleted. Right click there. Now we can advanced dupe. Check to make sure that our V12 is working. So select these points again. So we know that these ones are working, and now we're going to see if these ones work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me undo our crank. Look at that. You have successfully made a V12. Now, I don't know how long this video has gone on for, but I'm pretty sure it's gone on for long enough. So what I'm thinking about doing is cutting the video here, and then my next video I'll be talking about linking the pistons up. But I'm pretty sure you probably know how to do that already, but I'll still make a video on how to do it. So anyway, I'll leave a duplication of this one, just this, like this, down in the comments, so you can use your own E2 if you want. But if not, stay tuned for the next video. Hope you have a good time. This guy's been pissing me off a lot. Go away.